A woman leaves her hard-working husband for a rich man, only to discover that wealth does not bring happiness. 5 years later, she realizes her mistake and fights to regain true love. In the days following her decision, Maria immersed herself in the world of luxury that Javier offered her. The mansion was like a dream come true: marble walls, crystal chandeliers, and staff attending to her every whim. However, the opulence surrounding her couldn't fill the void that began to grow in her heart. At first, Maria tried to convince herself that she had made the right decision. She wore designer clothes, attended exclusive parties, and dined at the finest restaurants in the city. But every public smile was a mask hiding her growing dissatisfaction. Javier, for his part, seemed more occupied with his business and maintaining appearances than sharing genuine moments with her. He often left her alone in the mansion, lost in her thoughts. One afternoon, while looking out the window of her luxurious room, Maria nostalgically recalled the simple days with Carlos. The warmth of their small house, the nights filled with laughter and board games, and the way he looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Compared to that, everything Javier gave her seemed empty and meaningless. Maria began to realize that wealth couldn't buy happiness, that material things couldn't fill the void in her soul. One day, at one of those lavish parties, Maria found herself surrounded by superficial people talking about trivial things. She felt alone, trapped in a world that wasn't hers. Javier was beside her, conversing with other businessmen, completely ignoring her. In that moment, a sense of hopelessness enveloped her. What had she done? How had she ended up so far from the life she once had? Maria tried to connect with Javier, seeking something that would make her feel alive. "Javier, do you remember the last time we went out together, just you and me?" she asked with a forced smile. Without looking at her, Javier replied, "I don't have time for that now, Maria. I'm busy with something important." That response hit her like a bucket of cold water. Maria felt her heart break a little more. She realized that to Javier, she was nothing more than a decorative piece, an extension of his status and power. The reality of her situation became clearer than ever. She had traded true love for a life of superficiality and loneliness. That night, while removing her makeup in front of the mirror, Maria couldn't hold back her tears. The image reflected back at her was of a woman who had lost her way, who had betrayed her own values for an illusion. She felt deep regret and an inexplicable sadness. All the gold in the world couldn't ease the pain of leaving Carlos, the man who truly loved her. Maria lay down in the cold, luxurious bed of the mansion, feeling more alone than ever. She realized that wealth wasn't the answer to her problems, and that she had lost something invaluable in the process. With each passing day, the weight of her decision became more unbearable, and Maria began to question if she would ever find a way to redeem herself. 5 years had passed since Maria left Carlos and her modest life behind. During those years, she had tried to adapt to her new reality, but the sadness and emptiness never left her. The parties, the jewelry, and the exotic trips couldn't fill the void in her heart. Maria found herself trapped in a golden cage, yearning for the simplicity and genuine love she had lost. One afternoon, while walking alone through the vast garden of the mansion, Maria found a small bench under an old oak tree. She sat down and closed her eyes, letting the gentle breeze caress her face. In her mind, memories of Carlos came back strongly. She remembered how they used to sit together in the small park near their old house, sharing dreams and laughter. She remembered his warm smile, his hard-working but gentle hands, and how he made her feel loved and safe. Suddenly, a deep sadness overwhelmed her. "What have I done?" she asked in a broken voice. Tears began to stream down her cheeks, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to cry. She cried for the love she left behind, for the wrong decisions, for the man she had hurt. She realized that everything she sought in wealth was an illusion, and that the true treasure she had was always with Carlos. That night, Maria decided to confront her feelings. She sat in front of the mirror in her room, looking at her reflection. She was a different woman from the one Carlos had known, more elegant, more refined, but also sadder and emptier. With a trembling voice, she spoke to herself, "Maria, you made mistakes, but you can still try to fix things. It's not too late to seek forgiveness." Maria knew she had to go back and find Carlos, even if the fear of rejection and guilt consumed her. She gathered her courage and decided that she would find him, that she would ask for his forgiveness, no matter how difficult it was. The idea of facing him after so much time, after all the pain she caused, terrified her. But more terrifying was continuing to live with the regret of not trying to mend her mistakes. The next morning, Maria got up early and began making calls to find out where Carlos was. Each call was a reminder of the chasm she had created between them. Finally, she discovered that Carlos had opened a small mechanic shop in a nearby town. Maria's heart raced at the thought of seeing him again. She didn't know how he would react, if he would be willing to listen to her or if he would hate her for what she had done. That night, while Javier was out of town on business, Maria sat in the luxurious living room of the mansion, surrounded by all the comforts she once thought would make her happy. But in her chest, there was only pain and a deep longing for what she had lost. She took a photo of her and Carlos from an old album and held it tightly. It was a picture of the two of them, young and happy, before everything changed. "I'm sorry, Carlos," she murmured with a broken voice. "Forgive me for being so blind." She knew she had to face her past and seek redemption, even if it meant reliving the pain. Maria was ready to fight for forgiveness and perhaps regain some of the love they once shared. With a racing heart and a mix of fear and hope, Maria headed to the town where Carlos had built a new life. It wasn't easy to decide to seek him out, but she knew she had to face her past and ask for forgiveness. Every kilometer she traveled, she felt the weight of the years she had spent away, the mistakes she had made, and the love she had left behind. Finally, she arrived at Carlos's small mechanic shop. From outside, she could see several customers chatting and cars being repaired. The place was modest but exuded a warmth Maria had forgotten. She took a deep breath and, with her heart in her hand, approached the entrance. She didn't know what to expect, but she was determined to make amends regardless of Carlos's reaction. Inside, the sound of tools and the smell of oil enveloped her, reminding her of the days she used to wait for Carlos while he worked. She looked around, searching for his familiar face. And there he was, with the same focused expression and hands covered in grease. Carlos looked older, with more gray hairs and lines of worry on his face. But he was still him, the man she once loved with all her heart. Carlos looked up and froze when he saw her. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Maria felt a lump in her throat, unable to say a word. Carlos's expression shifted from surprise to confusion, and then to a mix of emotions she couldn't decipher. With a deep sigh, she approached him, feeling the weight of each step. "Carlos," she began with a broken voice. "I know this is unexpected, and I know I hurt you deeply. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I needed to see you and tell you how sorry I am." Carlos looked at her in silence, his face impassive. Maria felt a chill, fearing the indifference he might feel towards her. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, Carlos spoke, his voice firm but calm. "Maria, many years have passed. What do you expect to find here?" The question hit her like a punch. Maria lowered her gaze, fighting back tears. "I don't know," she admitted, feeling vulnerable. "I don't know what I expected, I just needed to tell you that I made a big mistake. That I'm sorry for leaving you and that I miss you." Carlos observed her for a moment, his eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and compassion. "Maria, you can't just show up and expect everything to go back to how it was," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "My life has changed, I have changed. I can't erase what happened." Maria felt a pang of pain hearing those words. She knew it wouldn't be easy, that she couldn't expect Carlos to welcome her with open arms. But she also knew she had to try, she had to fight for the love they once shared. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she responded, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to see you explain, and if possible start again, even if it's just as friends." Carlos looked at her, his eyes searching for something in hers. Finally, he slowly nodded. "We can talk," he said, his voice softening. "But understand that it won't be easy. Trust needs to be rebuilt." Maria felt a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. It was a long road, but it was a start. She was willing to do whatever it took to regain Carlos's trust and perhaps the love they once shared. She had made a mistake, but now she had the chance to make amends and rebuild what she had lost. Maria and Carlos began to meet regularly, often in the small park where they used to spend time together years ago. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and their regrets. Maria opened her heart to Carlos, explaining how she realized that wealth and luxury couldn't replace genuine love and happiness. She told him about the emptiness she felt in the mansion and how she missed the simple, sincere moments they shared. Carlos, for his part, listened attentively, though he didn't fully let down his guard. He had also moved on with his life and had learned to live without Maria. But deep down, he couldn't deny that seeing her again had stirred old emotions. He remembered the love they had and the pain he felt when she left. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily, but he was willing to give Maria a chance. One evening, while sitting on a bench in the park, Maria gathered the courage to ask a question that had been on her mind for days. "Carlos, do you think we could ever be more than friends again?" she asked, her voice filled with hope and fear. Carlos looked at her thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting the internal battle he was fighting. "Maria," he began slowly, "I can't deny that I still have feelings for you. But it will take time for me to trust you again completely. We can try, but we need to go slowly." Maria nodded, understanding the importance of taking things one step at a time. "I promise I will do everything to regain your trust," she said with determination. "I don't want to rush anything. I just want to be with you, in whatever way you feel comfortable." From that moment on, Maria dedicated herself to rebuilding the relationship with Carlos. She showed him through her actions that she was committed to making amends. She helped him at the mechanic shop, bringing him lunch, and spending time with him, showing genuine interest in his life and work. Gradually, Carlos began to see the changes in her, the sincerity in her efforts. Months passed, and their bond grew stronger. Carlos started to open up more, sharing his own fears and hopes. They laughed together, reminisced about old times, and created new memories. Maria felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in years. She realized that true happiness was found in the love and connection they shared, not in material possessions. One evening, while watching the sunset together, Carlos turned to Maria with a serious expression. "Maria, I think I'm ready to take the next step," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to give us another chance, not just as friends, but as partners." Maria's heart soared with joy. Tears filled her eyes as she smiled at Carlos. "Thank you, Carlos," she whispered, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "I promise I won't let you down. I love you." Carlos took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I love you too, Maria. Let's take this journey together, one step at a time." With that, Maria and Carlos embraced, feeling the warmth of their love enveloping them. They had faced many challenges, but they were ready to start anew, stronger and more committed than ever. Maria had learned a valuable lesson: true love is priceless, and it's worth fighting for, no matter the obstacles. In the end, Maria and Carlos found their way back to each other, proving that love, when genuine, can withstand the test of time and adversity. They built a life together, filled with the simple, meaningful moments that made them truly happy. And Maria never forgot the importance of cherishing the love they had, knowing it was the most valuable treasure she could ever possess.